what's going on. I'll tell you what's going on. We are now entering an extinction event. We've actually been in it for a while. And the Earth and its occupants, well, not the Earth, but its occupants, will be extinct. And what's going to cause it? It's not going to be dinosaurs farting, some asteroid colliding. Now, maybe, it could be a volcano, okay? I mean, it could be a volcano. As far as a volcano, you know what would happen, right? The ash would go into the sky, it would dim the earth, the sun wouldn't, you know, let the plants grow, we'd starve, right? Except we're dying a slow death now. And I know that you little green flag wavers, you guys, renewable energy, nothing wrong with renewable energy, and some energy you think is clean energy, it's not. And so, and including the Dumb and Dumber presidents, and we now have the Dumber Dumber presidents. We got Dumber Dumber and Dumber Dumber. So none of them are helping out the situation. I mean, we should have known when, Einstein. It all started. They invented nuclear energy. Okay, sure, and that was fusion and fission and all that good stuff. But then they decided to weaponize it, and they had a secret project called the Manhattan Project. It employed like 200,000 people in America, and everybody's compartmentalized. Just like today, the whole world's compartmentalized. People work for the CIA, they only know this little bit of the big plan. So if something happens to this guy, he can't say something about that because they're all compartmentalized. They have no clue. And so they were all compartmentalized, the people working for the Manhattan Project. Well, we don't want to get into that. That's a whole other video. But Einstein wrote a letter to the president before he died, and he says, don't do it. Don't do it. It's going to be a disaster for the world. It's going to lead to a lot of bad things. And the president died in office, and the new president, Mr. T, didn't read the letter, or he did, or he just didn't care. And he dropped 2 large nuclear weapons onto a country. And, and then after that, they had so much uranium. I mean, just so you know where uranium comes from some of you people that don't understand what it is. It's comes out of the ground, and there's places they mine it. So, like for example, Australia mines it, but they don't have a nuclear reactor. There's a 5 out of 80, or we have 70. We have 70 countries. 6 of them don't have nuclear reactors because they're like, no, we're not doing it, and there's like 5 now that are decommissioning them, and we'll talk about that in a second. Well, anyway, so they take the stuff out of the ground, and there's I think there's a place you can look this stuff up, Bear Lake or Bear Mountain or something in Canada, and there's a lot of places where they mine it, and it comes out of the ground. It's like mixed in, it's dirt with metal in it, and then they take the metal out. Well, the metal is very strong metal. It's like a metal. It's uranium. And it's very radioactive. In other words, it's unstable, and our bodies don't do very good to radiation. Okay, and so, and by the way, all the people that mine that stuff, like all the women were widowed. There's like a tribe, Indian tribe. All their husbands died from that, and then they put them on trains and took it to places, projects. To refinish it, what they do is it's called yellow cake, and we had a place here in Cleveland where they brought it in, and they may have brought it in by boat or ship across Canada, not necessarily the railroad tracks. And by the way, if you follow railroad tracks, you could also follow cancer. So, the stuff falls off the train. You ever go watch a train go by and it's a cloud behind it? They can lose 20% of it, as from their little travel. So this stuff probably comes on a ship, and what they do is they refine it, they process it, and they create what's called uranium. They get yellow cake, which is the dirt. They take the uranium out, uranium 238. They refine it to uranium 234, and there's two different types. There's 234 and 235. And then, of course, if they take 234 and they refine it again, they get plutonium. So if, let's say you had 1,000 pounds of dirt, yellow cake, and you would get maybe 10 pounds of uranium and 1 pound of plutonium. Okay. Now, that stuff is very dangerous, and half-life is thousands of years. I mean, your life is, the half-life won't even be close. Some are millions of lives, and some isotopes are less. They could be nanoseconds. Like cesium-137, 134, and iodine-101, which happens when you have a nuclear meltdown like they had in Fukushima. That cloud came over, and those isotopes rained down. It's a low-temperature isotope created by the uranium. And so those might last 3 days. Like radon is 3.8 days, right? Half-life, then it's half every 3.8 days. So that's how that works. And so, by the way, that cloud that came over, we ate all that food that summer. And that was 3 years, a half-life, 30-day half-life, and a 9-day half-life. So it didn't matter. Once you eat, then those are alpha particles. Alpha's got to go ingested, or it doesn't go through your skin, but in your mouth. Whereas gamma, uranium, it's a zoomy. It goes right through everything, right? And so you eat that, it does a damage, the half-life in your body goes away, but then what about the damage it left? Okay, keep that in mind. No one ever thinks about that. And so renewable energy, it's they call it clean energy, and there's nothing clean about it. And unfortunately, there's hardly any activists anymore, and which is horrible. And these presidents are pushing it, and they're not like telling us everything. For example, right now, there's uranium in our oceans. I mean, the Russians, these guys are dumping. They got submarines down there that they sunk that got uranium in them. Nuclear subs. Then they dump stuff, and who knows how many the polar bears. Do you think they're dying because of the weather changing? Man, no, they're emaciated. They're emaciated because they have leukemia. I mean, Russia had a lot of fires, and whenever had those nuclear, they didn't even tell you about all the nuclear meltdowns they had, and those forests start on fire, and you gotta find them, and nobody tells you about it. And all that smoke goes up over to the polar bears, and then the fish are dying, and they're emaciated. They have leukemia, man. All the seals you hear, all the die-offs, the bird die-offs in the Pacific Ocean. I mean, when reactors 2, 3, and 4 blew up in Fukushima. By the way, that Fukushima accident was a million Chernobyls. 10 million 3 Mile Islands. That's how bad that was. And anyways, so when that thing blew up, and it was also at a low elevation. Here's right there. The lake's down here, the ocean's here. Here's Fukushima, and here's Fukushima's mountains. The water goes underneath it into the ocean. That's how stupid these people in Japan are. They put nuclear reactors at the ocean level, so the water table goes into the ocean. So now you got 3 reactors down deep, melting. This is 11 years later. That doesn't stop. It's all radioactive for, I don't know, 20,000 years or 2. Who doesn't even matter. And so this water's going to the ocean. And now, like on other sites, extinction. We're now starting to see extinct species, like certain starfish. There ain't no starfish in the Pacific Ocean over there. And there's a couple activists that totally get sandbagged by all these mainstreams, and they get shadow banned. And one of them just repeats all day long. Every day he does it, and his kind of boring. But you know what? If you don't know what you're going, go to his show. And Dana Dunford, he was on YouTube, and you'll watch him. He'll catch you up. I'm not going to get into all that. He'll catch you up on everything. and he does it every day. So his shows are kind of the same. So he got whacked. He had like 500 or 800 videos. They took them all down, but he still does them every day. And there's another guy who rants, Kevin Blanche. He's and that guy, he's really highly intelligent. So he like throws so much stuff at you and mixes it and mumbles it, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, if you can follow it, he's a good guy. He's a good ranter, and he's a complete nuclear activist. And he actually got cancer from all this stuff, and he's a survivor. Check him out. And then you'll see later down below here, there's two idiots. Mm. And every time I block them, they get a new name. And what they do is they just search the whole net for people like me and to try to discourage what I'm saying. And they're paid by NGOs and they're paid by the nuclear. You see, the nuclear industry pays trolls. You got trolls and you got shills. The shills get paid. So, like, like when election comes up and your phone gets bombarded with shit, those are shills. NGO liberals that are getting paid by one of these non-governing entities, non-governing organizations funded by somebody like Soros. I want to say his name fast. And so the whole world, it's hard to find stuff, to find the truth about nuclear energy. I mean, you look it up on Wikipedia, they tell you, they downplay it. And it's pretty serious. There's 500, by the way, ever since that dropping a couple of those bombs, they had to do more, right? They had to do a lot more. So down the Pacific, you can't go to certain islands. Kennedy got killed for it because he shut down atmospheric testing. They blew up 200 over 200 and 200 over 200 atomic weapons in the ground and above ground down on the west coast of America. Where do you think those clouds went? And why do you think when we were kids, you guys are young, they're watching this, but I'm 60. Man, I had a lot of kids in my schools that had leukemia and died. Man, including my dad. My dad was a GE scientist. He had a couple of doctorate degrees, came from Trieste, Slovenian, and he came right after World War II, and he built the Nila Park. GE, by the way, GE makes all the nuclear reactors. They got a couple of them. They're all over the place. There's a couple other people at Westinghouse, I think, and a couple, but they make a ton of them. He worked for them for like 6 years, and guess what happened to him? Leukemia, died. My dad died young. He died 57, and he had 7 brothers that all lived to be in their 90s that stayed in Slovenia and Slovenia and Croatia, I think. And so they all lived to be in their 90s. And then my mom, 7 years later, remarried another guy. Guess what? He worked for the nuclear industry too. He came from Canada. He died early too. He worked for Victorine. Victorine. There's two in Cleveland. We have two places, or there's more, but two that I've studied a bit. And they used to make radio. They used to make Geiger counters. And I remember I was going to a private school. He took me there one day. The stepfather, dad, whatever, day with the kid. And I remember the third floor, there was a room you look into it. It was freaking highly radioactive. And so later in my life, 6 years ago, I'm not into flowers and the yard ornaments and all that stuff they brainwash you they think is nice and you know that you're clean grass with no weeds, and I'm not into that. I'm more into the forgotten, okay, blight. I like blight because nobody likes it, and I think there's beauty in that. So I break in abandoned buildings all the time, and Victorine was one of them. And I never forget. I got YouTube videos on this stuff, and there was that room right there, man. And I was just like, I should have brought my Geiger counter, and I have a couple of them. And then when I went back, they had boarded up, and then I took it down, so I never got to actually go check to see how many of us got radioactive isotopes or got some exposure. But anyways, so we have 500 of these sites all over the world. Some are nuclear reactors. In America, we used to have 100. Now I think we're down to 70. And the issue here is that they have what's called rods, spent rods, and those rods still have 90%. They put them in the reactors, and then after 3, 4, 5 years, depending, they take them out. And what do they do with these rods? They still get 90% of the energy. So France, I think, is recycling them. But there's these things are all over the place, and they're put in buildings that are built like Kmart's. masonry block buildings. And so we have these things all over America. So if we have 70 reactors, we have 70 sites. And they're supposed to take them all to Yucca Mountain. And they're like, nah, we don't want your nuclear reactor waste. And so you have to think about this. We got these time bombs everywhere in America, all over the world. And all it takes is an accident. And an accident is a tornado, and I'll do a video on how they make the tornadoes not hit these places and how they can steer a hurricane so it doesn't do it. But I mean, there's a, New York City, there's a reactor up the river there that's had leaks and killed fish and frogs. But if that thing were to, if something were to hit that and those rods were to be dispersed, you'd be like contaminating a whole city, and you'd be talking millions and millions of people. You know, it'd be unprecedented. We have nuclear releases everywhere. They don't tell you about them. I mean, the nuclear reactor down in Florida, that thing's been contaminating the water, the groundwater for years. It's even getting into the corals and in the ocean. People have wells, contamination. Then you had releases in Chicago. They don't tell you about water. The water gets into the sewer system and into the, I mean, we're talking millions of gallons of water, radioactive water. They don't tell you about that. What about in Ohio? Our governor, oh yeah, bring your fracking waste here. Fracking waste is? They get salt and stuff like that, put it in the ground, and what's in the ground? Radium. And the water comes up, that's waste plus whatever other waste they have. And like nobody wants that waste because it's radioactive. So Governor Ohio says, just bring it to us. We got a couple dumps, dump it in there. Man, everyone's getting cancer, getting sick. And don't live near a dump, especially if you don't know what's in that dump. And then they also use it they dump it on our roads for a de-icer. Yeah. The frogs in the ditches are getting this stuff. I mean, you drive behind a de-icing truck 4 years ago, you were getting sprayed with radioactive isotopes, man. Just get your card. And you put it in your carpets. They didn't tell you that was radioactive. They just dumped it on our streets. Oh my God, you can look, it's insane. And so you got these sites all over. You got this contamination going on. Oh, here we go. Here's a good one. Man, I wouldn't want to be living in St. Louis right now. They got some underground dumps. You know what's in those dumps? Radioactive waste. Guess what's going on in one of those underground dumps? It's on fire. It's been on fire for 10 years. Big secret. It's almost, that fire's almost reached the radioactive debris. What's going to happen to the people in St. Louis? They can't put this fire out. It's been going on for 10 years. What about if you go out to the west coast, you go to California? They dump barrels and barrels of crap out there back in the 50s and 60s, and they're all rusted. You're fishing. Oh, that was a good tuna there, man. Radioactive, yeah, right, 50 miles out, maybe even less than that, in California. And then, let's go to New York. Oh yeah, go another 30 miles out there. There's a bunch of barrels down there too. They dumped them. You can look this stuff up. And what about the stuff you can't look up? That's out there. That's radioactive. So we got this radioactive waste. And what about the hospitals? Oh my God, this is a good one. Mexico, they tore down a hospital they recycled some steel, aluminum, and then there was some equipment that was radioactive from a hospital, and radioactive waste. They got put into the aluminum, and then they made studs out of it and shipped it to America. There's houses with radioactive studs. Yeah, yeah, oh yeah. That you could look that one up too. But anyways, what about if you could look one thing up, there's 99 things you can't look up. That's what I'm talking. We're talking about that 99. And you're wondering why there's so many people getting sick today. And then you go to the hospital. What do? They hit you with radiation. We ain't gonna touch that one because I'll get banned or I'll get the video taken down. But so, do you guys think that this is clean energy? What are you gonna do with these rods? They're all over. Okay, they're next to the reactors. They're stored in sites. They're not telling you about it, and you can't trust your government. I mean, a perfect example would have been in 311. 3/11/11 when we had the Fukushima meltdown, and one of our presidents got an airplane with us to the southern hemisphere, get away from. So did the GE people, that the GE executives went down to Southern America. All that plume came over America for 10 days, raining, cesium, and isotopes. Okay, and they said, "Oh, don't worry about it, everything's fine." They even raised the limits of the food for to accept more radiation. Okay, I mean, people in North Korea, in Korea and China told Japan, "We don't want your rice, because it's all contaminated." That place is full of 30 million 1-ton bags from the cleanup. They're all over that country. These bags are starting to float down rivers and streams, and they're starting to lose them into the ocean. I mean, how long can you hold a garbage bag? They're big bags, they're a ton each, and and so this contamination is going slow. And here's the thing, people try to say, "Oh, you get cancer, you're gonna die right away." Listen, cancer is here's death, here's cancer. What's everything back that way? 500 other problems. That's right. So you may not get these two things instantly. You may get those 500, and you think it's something. It's just you're could be anything. There's 500 other ailments you could get from this, and so you go see a doctor, and you're like, "Oh, you got this, and it's hereditary, whatever. You got it from a mosquito," and they give you prescriptions, and so now you're being, and then the prescription causes the problem, and you get another prescription, and then you have another problem, and before you know it, man, you're dying 20 years kind of early, and it's all because of chemical contamination, which is a whole other video, and the way they do agriculture, another video, electromagnetics frequencies, another video. We're talking about nuclear, and so nuclear, it's not clean energy, absolutely not. And think about how they had to make it. I mean, they had to they had to make it. Making plants isn't clean, and then it sure produces clean energy while it's working. I mean, America, we have, I think it's like 20 or 30% of our energy is created by nuclear power. Um, so, and then a lot of the world is, there's reactors everywhere, and so, but they have to go what's called, they have outages, and an outage is when they have to put new rods in. So they're still going to mine uranium, put new rods in, and as the years go on, for 50 years now, there's more and more rods, right? And they say that America produces 2 tons of radioactive waste a year. When I tell you something, multiply that by 5, but let's just say 2 tons for giggles, and we'll multiply it at the end. And that's for, let's say, 70 reactors. There used to be 100. There's 500 of these places around the world. So it'd be 2 times 10. Let's say 10 tons. Let's double it. 20 tons a year. 20 tons a year, right? Since 1950, that's 70 years. 20 times 70. Figure that out. That's a lot of tons of radioactive waste that will be highly radioactive for thousands and thousands of years. You can't get rid of it. I mean, they should probably be shooting stuff in space or shoot it to the moon or something. But no, it's sitting around, and you're always going to hear of an accident, because the longer this goes on, the more accidents. So when we start off talking about extinction event, right? Well, we're getting extinction events. Okay, we're getting them from animals and bugs. I mean, we don't have enough bugs anymore. Where are all the bugs? I mean, we have invasive bugs, and they bring bugs in now. I mean, we don't have all the bugs we used to have. We don't have all the bugs in the dirt. The bugs don't like that chemical stuff. They don't like the pesticides. They don't like radiation. And so all this is going on simultaneously. And then you guys are waving that flag, you and Greta and Gore, and you're missing the boat, man. You're missing the boat. What you should be doing is waving the stop the nuclear, and let's figure out what to do with the nuclear waste that we have, the millions and millions of pounds of waste that's not going to just, you can't bury it. And they try to, like, even the stuff they dumped in the oceans. I mean, the Russians did it. Americans, we did it, man. We did it too. And you think just we did it? What about the rest of the world? this stuff is everywhere. And we're eating the fish. Oh, yeah, radioactive fish. They want, we're worried about farm fish where, they put pellets in the water and they eat their fecal and all that. But, okay, that's bad fish, anyways. But radioactive fish, you eat that, it gets in your body, man. It gets in your body burden. And, and, and that's how this world's going to end. It's going to be a slow radioactive death. And there's going to be more leaks, more releases. And you know what? None of you guys care. You know why? Because you're busy. They got you preoccupied. Like what? It's just 2022, right? What do they do? They're already candidates already saying I'm running for this 2 years early. Why? So they could keep the bullshit propaganda going and keep you busy, so you're not looking stuff up, so you're not getting smart, you're not being an activist. And like in Cleveland, we had this Harshaw, and nobody cares. Harshaw uh, leaked. There is radioactive waste underground in the flats, and if it gets into the water supply, folks, it will get there. It's already down there. They have wells. People go down there every couple of months in white suits. I got photos of these guys. I went down there while they were tearing that building down. They weren't using water. I saw that dust when they knocked that building out right into the lake area or into the river. I remember doing it, and they did. When did they do it? They knocked down building. I think it was building 22, and that's on Harshaw 100, where they used to down in the flats in Cleveland. And I used to go there and take photos of it. And they had a big pile of dirt with plastic on it. You got a plastic falls off and wind blows a little bit, right? The pile gets smaller and smaller, and and I'll never forget. They started tearing down this building, the most radioactive building. By the way, it's been vacant for 30 years. And there was always two SUVs up front, and one light on the top store, and it was all fenced in. And they were tearing down this building, and he started tearing it down on December the 26th. It was like negative 50 million degrees. It was so cold. It was in the negatives in Cleveland. And that's when he tore it down that week up till the first, because all the news media were on vacation. But me and his buddy, me and one of my buddies, he's another, me and him were like, I think the only nuclear activist in Cleveland. And we were there. That's where I met my buddy. And I'm sitting there taking photos of this. And then all of a sudden, I remember the guys see me up on the bridge taking photos, and they didn't have their water. They're supposed to water stuff down as you knock it down. They were off, and you could see the puffs going down, with the wind, and because they're knocking the building down, right? The dust, right? Radioactive dust, highly radioactive, and they stop all the equipment, and these guys get in these vans and trucks and shoot up the hill. I'm like, holy shit, I gotta get out of here. Man, I start running across the bridge, because on top of this bridge, got my car and took off. And I don't know what they were gonna do to me. Who knows? I wasn't gonna find out. But I got all these photos. I put some of this stuff, and sometimes they take my stuff down. And so yeah, what about these buildings? They got to take them down. Super fun sites. And where do they take the dirt? Nobody watches. You know why? Because you guys are busy walking your dogs with the sweaters, and you're busy going to the treadmill, working out on a treadmill, and then you go home and you watch the news, and look at your Star Wars memorabilia. I can't say that word. Memorabilia. And, and in the meantime, they're tearing down these buildings all over the country. And where are they dumping that stuff at? Okay, I'll give you an example. So I come back 3 months later, because I keep watching that pile, and all of a sudden they're getting rid of that pile. And this is I'm not. This is crazy. So I am like, all right, I'm going to follow this. And where are they taking this? This dump truck gets up. He pulls up the hill. This is from Harshaw, and he gets on the freeway, and he goes. I don't know if you guys know Cleveland. I'm following him, right? Because I want to see. I got my GoPro. I had an idea. I wanted to know where they're dumping it. And if he was going to go too far, I knew he was taking it to the right dump site. Well, he went all the way around Cleveland. He went 480, 271. Then he got off at 271 on Mayfield, took Mayfield through the inner city all the way back to where he started from, almost to 55th. And then he's pulled in, and it took me an hour and 15 minutes. And I'm like back to where we started from. And all of a sudden we go to this diner on 55th. He pulls into the diner with his truck. And then I kind of pull in after two cars. He gets out of his truck, and he just turns his head and looks at me. And he goes like that. And just stared at me for like 30 seconds and went at a diner. And I'm just like, oh, shit. Oh, my God. This guy knew I was following him. I, anyways, so then I had an idea where he was taking it, and it was a place where they took down. There's a big hill there now, and it was a place where they took down one of our. Um, they got rid of our coal-fired furnaces, our coal-fired energy. They got rid of it, and there's like a little pile there, you know. So I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not gonna get too involved with that one. But you got to think about all the radioactive waste where it's at. You may be living in a house with a dump, and that dump has got stuff in it. Okay, I know. You may be living downstream from one of these Kmart buildings full of nuclear waste, spent rods, and all of a sudden there's an earthquake or there's a flood. A flood, that'll do it too. A flood. Oh, do we get floods? Oh, once in a while we get a flood, especially with rivers. When these things are all on rivers, think about that. And where's that water going to go? Sure, it'll kill the fish, and we'll have more extinct, more extinct starfish. But that's not clean energy, and you're surrounded by it, man. It's everywhere. It's the spent rods. It's the medical industry. It's the garbage dumps. It's the reactors that leak. I mean, like David Bessie, it leaked. There was a crack. You know how they fixed that crack? Super glue. Yeah, we have a nuclear power plant with super glue on it. And what's funny is if you go right across the lake, there's a town called Vermilion. Oh man, everyone got cancer in that town. I mean, two of those schools are closed, and all those teachers, most of them are dead. They all had cancer. And it's like kind of right across, like downstream where the wind would blow, and so then you had 3 Mile Island. There's people still dying from that thing, and that was like one of the smallest releases compared to the bigger ones. And compare, what about the ones they're not even telling us about? The Russians, the Chinese. You trust those people? You can't even trust your own government. I mean, and I'll end it one more. When that thing came over from Fukushima, they told us don't worry about it, and it was low temperature. It wasn't uranium. It was when you have a meltdown, you create isotopes. So the cesiums and the iodine were low temperature, and they're not gamma. They're alpha. In other words, it's got to go in. You have to ingest it. It doesn't go through your skin. Well, those float down, and they have half-lives, which aren't no millions of years. They're shorter, but it's enough to where you eat your carrot or your celery, right, during that summer, and so, see, I don't have a script. I'm 60. I forget what I was talking about. Anyways, so you have to worry about living downstream, from these things. You have to worry about the water. You think that the plants in Chicago call everybody in the neighborhood and says, you can't use your well anymore. And if it gets into your storm lines and your sewer lines, it can get into the groundwater, right? There's derivatives of all this. And so you're surrounded by all this stuff. And you know what? You really don't care. Nobody cares. I mean, you would care if you were not ignorant. And I don't mean ignorant as the word is being stupid. Ignorant means you don't know because you're not looking it up. You're not asking questions. And people don't ask questions anymore. They just, I mean, I could do an experiment. I could put on a unicorn outfit, put on a face mask, and go to a store, go to a food store, and go down with my little shopping cart. If I could have cameras all around on my head, the people will not look at you. They'll just like turn their head like they don't want to look at you. They know you're there off to the side, but they don't want to look at you and go up. You say, why are you wearing that outfit? You know why? They're designed not to ask questions. They're the collective. The collectives don't question. They turn their heads. They know it's somewhere in the back of their mind they're thinking about it, but no, they got cognitive dissonance to all this stuff. And they got walls, amnesia walls in their brain. And that's the problem with you people. You're not asking enough questions. You're not looking up. You're afraid to be the only guy. And by the way, I went to that meeting, okay, and this happened, and I'll end it here. I went to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, came to Cleveland, talk about Harshaw, and guess how many nuclear activists showed up there? Me and that other guy, and a few people that had family members up the hill that died of cancer. They were there, and there's 30 other people. Guess who they were? All the government, talking heads that came in on airplanes and these are the same people who go they go from city to city to city because you have radioactive isotopes and you have leaks and you have Superfund sites everywhere, and they only have so much money, so they come to town, and whoever shows up, they're like, oh, look, which town gets it, we're going to clean what up. And nobody showed up, and 30 days later they had another meeting to decide if they're going to spend $20 million to clean up our flats, to take all that radioactive water out of the ground. And guess how many people showed up? And by the way, they didn't even put it on the news. They put it on the news at 5:45, okay, on TV and on radio, and the meeting was at 6 at Holiday Inn on Rockside Road. 15-minute warning. It was not a front page of the paper. If it was, that place would be full. And they're like, no, man, you're coming to Cleveland and cleaning this shit up. No, totally. These people hide it. They lie. They give the money to their buddies. So they didn't clean it up. They left Cleveland and took that money somewhere else. And you know why? Because the people of Cleveland are too busy, drinking their beers and buying their $8 Indians. Oh, they're not the Indians anymore, are they? What are they? I remember I grew up with a team called the Indians. They changed the name because it hurts people's feelings. It hurts people's feelings. Oh my God. You guys are completely messed up. Oh, man. Anyways. Okay. That noise that you hear, we used to buy bread. It's $5 now. Not anymore. I'm making my own bread from now on. That's the bread machine. Anyways, hey, thanks for coming on. This is my nuclear rant. And what'll be funny is they're gonna, this not get a lot of views. And if it does, there's gonna be some of those NGO people gonna be on the bottom saying I'm crazy. I don't know what I'm talking about. I didn't say too many facts because they'll try to argue them. Nuclear power is an extinction event, and it's the devil in the ground. You're bringing hell up. The name of the video is Nuclear Devil, because that's what it is. Hell is in the ground at the magma where it's all boiling, and you're bringing the devil up. And what happens when you bring the devil up to the ground? Yeah, extinction events, sicknesses, deaths. Okay, time to put on a sweater and go walk your dog.